Good morning, everybody. It's LSP. It's currently the 13th of May, 2022. In the interest of saving some time, I've gone ahead and I've marked up the chart according to some very extensive research that I've been doing since this morning. My hope is to try to find a reset point on Bitcoin, try to make sense of what's going on, and try to find some semblance of we could be turning or we could be going lower. So I have a much better understanding of what's happening, and then I can act accordingly and obviously relay that, to you guys. I'm going to preface the video by saying I'm really not in a good mood, obviously, with everything that's going on. As I'm sure there's hundreds of thousands of people around the world right now that are being affected by, UST, Luna, and the debacle that's going off over there, made worse by the fact that this, potentially could have been coordinated. And if that is indeed the case, or speculation, of course, it just makes this thing even worse. Myself, along with people that I care about, people that I know, people that are friends of mine, are being hugely affected by this. And, it's something that, although obviously we know we're in the cryptocurrency space, we know these things happen. We know we put our funds at risk and so on. Investing isn't always easy. It still doesn't change the fact that shit like this shouldn't happen. Like, it simply should not happen. There's been some great ideas, and I'll just quickly go over to UST just to explain. There's been some great ideas, by the the Luna community that could have prevented all of this while it was happening. That could potentially reverse this, or at least make this 50% less of a problem. And these ideas are being dismissed, or they're not being executed, or they're trying to find other ways around it. As far as I'm concerned, if somebody in the community who's smart enough to try to find a solution that will work, and it's verifiable and something that will absolutely work, because let's be frank, this is blockchain technology, this is smart contracts, their values, their codes. It's just do A, do B, do C. If A happens, then B happens, then C happens, and so on, right? These are functions that are very easy to understand if you know what you're doing. And trying to find a solution to these problems isn't as difficult as it may seem. Obviously, what's happening right now with Luna is the supply on Luna is absolutely insane. The more they try to fix this problem, the more Luna's being minted, the more supply there is, the more worthless it becomes, right? Now, there are things that can be done to stop that, obviously. And, sorry, wrong one. That doesn't even look good either, to be fair. There are things that can be done, obviously, to fix that problem and mitigate it. But and again, I'm not saying that I'm an expert. I'm absolutely not an expert, right? But I know enough to know, right, there's things that could have been done and things that can still be done now, to alleviate this problem, at least 50%. So I'm hoping that something happens. I'm hoping that something happens pretty soon, because again, hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions, around the world have been massively affected by this, and it's crap. Like, it's a really crappy situation. So let me get back to the analysis. Sorry for the rant. Basically, I want to show you guys something. This is a huge broad range consolidation, okay, and historically, both with consolidations, broad range consolidations like this, and also consolidation ranges on Bitcoin from its inception up to this point, we generally tend to find that, as a rule of thumb, and it's not an absolute, but this is just as a rule of thumb, when we have broad range consolidations like this, when we go from one extreme to the next, that's pretty much what continues to happen. Now, obviously, it is possible that price does continue a little bit lower and then come back in, and then, find its way to the upside. That would be actually much better. I know most people don't want to hear that, but it would actually be better for Bitcoin to just have a dump right now, get it out of the way, and then just snap back, reverse, capitulate, and then off it goes, right? That is going to be a much better situation, because the prevailing move after that will have so much momentum behind it, because it's reset price, rebalanced, and then it's accumulated, a lot of Bitcoin down at these levels, and then we can really start to gain some momentum to the upside. If that doesn't happen, these are the levels right now that are in play: 21,000 roughly to 25,000, and then 37,000 to around about 40,000, right? So ideally, what we want to see, and at the minute we're in confirmation stage, right? We're trying to figure out which one of these two scenarios is going to play out, right? We've had a okay-ish response. It's a bit muted, not an amazing response, but there's some things that we can at least say have happened, so far. Price dropped, it started to accelerate a little bit. It's taken out the liquidity down here, and it also ran through a liquidity pool down here, showing, and I'll just quickly show you that on the daily, showing that this liquidity just here was completely irrelevant. That's not what it was reaching for. So I want to be really clear about what I'm saying here, okay? Because this is very, very important about the way liquidity pickups work and so on, right? This is a representation of what's happening with Bitcoin, okay? If Bitcoin ran through this liquidity, and I'll make a reference to it very quickly. If Bitcoin ran through that the way that it did, it means it wasn't trying to find liquidity here. Whether it was to offload, to distribute, whether it's to accumulate, it doesn't matter. That's not what it was looking for. Otherwise, it wouldn't have ran through and taken that out as quickly as it did, right? Which means it's looking for liquidity elsewhere. Yeah, remember, price is always trying to find liquidity. If you go forward on that premise, it makes your life so much easier when you're trying to figure this stuff out. So if Bitcoin's trying to find liquidity and it didn't find it here, or at least had no interest in this liquidity, it just scooped it up and off it went, okay, it means it's trying to find it somewhere else. That next place may very well be down here, okay? And if it goes through this as quick and then starts to get a muted response like this, then we are absolutely 100% going down to 20,000, sub 20,000, right? Because it will mean that this liquidity pool is in play. Very, very, very important. So going forward, ideally, what we would want to see is we want to see price start to run to the upside at least to 34,000, maintain and hold at these levels, and then start to run higher to go towards this liquidity pool, right? We will watch price as it goes up. We will watch price as it goes down, try to make sense of all of this. And then when I'm confident and I have, when I've seen enough, to put my kind of stamp on it and say that's where it's going, then obviously I'll do so. But right now, it's a waiting game. We just have to kind of grind through this process, and do our best to mitigate whatever losses, along the way. So with Binance, we had a much stronger response. If we go over to the weekly, we can see that the response on Binance is, it is much more aggressive. It's decent. It's not too bad. We went from 205 all the way up to around about 301 current price. That's decent. That's not too bad. Now to say very quickly before I continue with the analysis, if Bitcoin really starts to move to the downside, it won't matter because everything will follow suit, right? But at the moment, we've seen a pretty decent response. I haven't broken Binance down as much, but I did a quick scan through some things that I was looking for. And the same kind of scenario applies. All eyes are on Bitcoin at the moment, unfortunately. So we just have to be patient and kind of wait and see what happens with that. And then obviously going over to UST, this is a travesty. Going over to Luna, again, this is an absolute travesty. Current price is at 0.06, which is really, really low, obviously. I mean, at this point, and I'm going to reiterate what I said in the previous video, just leave Luna alone. Trying to jump into Luna now on a punt is a complete waste of time. Some people say, well, you stick $100 in it, maybe. But let's really think about this for a second. Let's say 100,000 people all, stick $100 into this, at varying different times just because it's there, it's low, it's worth a punt, doesn't matter if you lose your $100 or whatever. And then it starts to go back up. People are going to do one of two things. They're either going to leave it or they're going to sell it because they're making money. Most people are going to sell it. Let's be frank. These people, right, that say, I'm going to buy $100 down here and I'm going to wait and just leave it forever. And if it gets back up here, I'm going to be, loaded and so on. No, you're not. It's going to go to $200 or $300. You're going to be like, oh, I've made a little bit of money, and you're going to take it out and you're going to move on. Nothing's going to happen with Luna. That sort of trading, that sort of engagement, right, with something like this doesn't end well in the sense of it reverses everything, price goes back up and everybody's happy. Instead, what happens is you've got influencers online taking advantage of this situation, trying to pump Luna because they've bought a shit ton down here, and they want to make money. That's it. It's as simple as it gets. So please be careful. Please be mindful. We're not in the business of throwing our money away, right? We're in the business of trying to find solid investments, right? That makes sense. And I know even then, sometimes things go wrong. So why would we forcibly and agreeably throw our money into the market when it makes absolutely no sense to do that, especially knowing that when we look for solid investments that have sound fundamentals, things can still go wrong. Doesn't make sense, guys. So again, just a friendly warning. I'm not here to tell anybody what to do. It's absolutely not financial advice. And I will leave you with this thought. After 26 plus years of doing this, I've sat through 3 of these market crashes. All 3 were a lot worse than what's going on in the cryptocurrency market at the moment. 2 of which absolutely devastated me, and my finances and my life. And I can say that if you grind through it and you push to the other side and you learn from those experiences, and become better investors, at the end of that, then you've learned something. I can tell you from experience, like I said, that I've gone through quite a bit. And I wouldn't change any of that, for the world. Those experiences, obviously mine. Those experiences are things that I've shared with other people, and I'd like to think that through those experiences that I went through and the pain that I went through in the markets, I've been able to prevent that happening to other people to some degree. So with all of that said, guys, I will keep you updated. I'll post another review later this afternoon. Hope everyone's having a good day, and I look forward to speaking to you then. Take care.